In this video, we are going to have a look at the Sigma MC-21 converter, which allow you to convert the Canon EF mount lenses to use on the L mount cameras. So I'm going to share with you the results I got using various EF mount lenses on the L mount camera, including the Sigma EF mount lenses and also some of the Canon EF mount lenses. Kia ora, good morning everyone, Richard here. When the L mount Alliance was first announced at the Photo Keynote 2018, one thing that excited a lot of people is Sigma's involvement in the L mount Alliance, because we all know that Sigma has created many very impressive, very high quality lenses that's at very affordable prices. So having Sigma being part of the Alliance definitely make the L mount Alliance very attractive to a lot of photographers. Sigma is going to release their native L mount lenses and cameras, but before that, they have first released this Sigma MC-21 converter, which allow you to use the Canon EF mount lenses on the L mount camera. The converter is designed to use with the Sigma EF mount lenses, but you could also use it on the Canon EF mount lenses. So in this review, I'm going to test out the performance of this converter using both the Sigma EF mount lenses and also some of the Canon EF mount lenses on the Panasonic S1R. When Sigma originally announced this converter, they said it will be compatible with all the L mount camera, including the Panasonic one and all the Leica one. Unfortunately, now the converter hit the market. Sigma said due to some specification changes, the converter will not be compatible with the existing Leica L mount cameras. This is definitely a bit unfortunate, and I do not know what is the exact reason when they say specification changes. But sounds like in the future, all the future Leica L camera will be compatible with this MC-21 converter. The build quality of this converter is absolutely fantastic. Pretty much everything is made of metal, everything fits very well. When you mount it onto the camera, there is very minimal amount of play, so pretty much everything fits very well, very solidly. And if you look at the internal of the converter, you can see they also put a bit of black frocking inside the internal of the converter. This is to reduce the light reflection, especially when you are shooting directly into the light. So yeah, just trying to minimize any kind of light reflection that would degrade the image quality. There is also a tripod mount at the bottom of the converter, so that is very good when you're using some heavier lenses at the front. And the tripod mount is also removable. So in the box, they give you an Allen key so that you can use it to remove the tripod mount if you don't think you need to use the tripod mount at all. When you're using this converter to adapt EF mount lenses on the L mount camera, the auto exposure would still work. You can still use the camera dial to control the aperture, and the converter itself has also included the profile of 29 existing Sigma EF mount lenses. So for those 29 Sigma lenses, the things like distortion correction, chromatic aberration correction, vignetting correction, and one thing very important is the DFD autofocus profile are all preloaded onto the converter. So when you mount any of those existing Sigma EF mount lenses onto the converter and then use it on the L mount camera, then you have all those profile loaded just as if it is you're using a native L mount lens on the L mount camera. With the future Sigma EF mount lenses, the profile will be stored on the lens itself. It's a bit like when Panasonic introduced the DFD autofocus technology. The body have all those older existing lens DFD profile stored on the body, but then all the newer one, the DFD profile just stored on the lenses. With the lens mounted on the converter onto the camera body, and when you turn on the camera, if you see the green light here, that means everything works okay and you don't need to upgrade the firmware or anything at all. To test the performance of the MC-21 converter, I have got a Panasonic S1R here, which has the version 1.0 firmware loaded on it, and also a Sigma 50 f1.4 art series lens. Of course, this is the EF mount. And let's start and do some testing and see the performance. One thing I want to mention first is with the MC-21 converter, the autofocus, you can only shoot it in the single autofocus mode. At least with the current firmware, you can only have the single autofocus. So that means you cannot enable continuous autofocus no matter you are shooting in photo mode or video mode. So when you're shooting video, you can still enable the single autofocus when you are shooting video, but unfortunately there's no continuous autofocus. Okay, now let's test the single autofocus performance. I have light up the scene pretty bright, so as you can see, I'm just shooting at the base ISO. I would say the autofocus performance is okay. It is not super fast, but overall, I feel the performance is okay if you are using it to shoot a static scene or shooting portrait or things that doesn't move quickly. It should be good enough. Even though the converter should have included the DFD autofocus profile for the Sigma lenses, but I can definitely still see the lens does hunt back and forth a little bit when it's trying to autofocus. Of course, if you compare it with the native L-mount lens like the Panasonic 50 1.4, then there's a big difference between the autofocus performance. The Panasonic focus just a lot faster on the Panasonic S1R. Next, I'm going to dim the light in the room a little bit. The ISO now increased to quite a bit higher at ISO 6400. The autofocus performance actually doesn't degrade too much, even though the light is actually a lot dimmer than the first round of testing. Overall, I think it is still usable. But in comparison, you can still see with the Panasonic 50 1.4, the autofocus performance is still quite a bit better. Next, I'm going to dim the light of the room a lot more now. I'm now shooting at ISO 25600 at f1.4. So it is a pretty dark room, and I thought the lens will definitely struggle a lot and probably wouldn't work. But surprisingly, it still worked. I think it's at the borderline of work and not work, because a couple of times the camera does fail to focus correctly. But overall, I think the success rate is still usable when you are shooting static scene. The various autofocus modes such as the face detection mode can still be selected when you are using the converter. But because of the autofocus speed is a bit slower, so the overall reliability of the various autofocus mode would be a little bit lower when you compare to using a native L-mount lens. Next, I'm going to test the autofocus performance when you are recording video. As I mentioned before, the continuous autofocus wouldn't work when you are shooting video and photo as well. So the test is just using a single focus as well. The autofocus performance is definitely not the fastest, and it also hunted a little bit. But if you just want a single autofocus when you are recording video, then it still works okay. I want to see how does the converter performs when you mount it with some native Canon EF mount lenses. So I made a trip to the Auckland Camera Centre to see my friends there and to try out some of the Canon EF mount lenses at their shop. I tried a couple of lenses, the Canon 50 f1.8 STM, the 50 f1.2, the 16 to 35 f4, and also the 100mm f2.8 macro lens. So the first lens I test is the 51.8 STM lens. Compared to the Sigma lens, the autofocus speed is definitely a bit slower, and you can definitely hear and feel the autofocus hunt quite a bit more compared to the Sigma. But despite that, the autofocus does work, and the result is also very accurate. And then I tried the 50 f1.2, which is the big monster lens with very shallow depth of field. Not surprisingly, you can hear the autofocus work quite a bit harder when you are using the f1.2 lens shooting at f1.2. The autofocus speed is actually still okay. It's not like there's not significant difference between the f1.2 and f1.8. But at the same time, definitely notice a bit more hunting as well, probably due to the more shallow depth of field. Then I tried the 16-35 f4 lens. With this lens, the autofocus performance is a lot better. The autofocus speed is a lot faster, and I notice a lot less hunting when you are switching between near and far focus objects, probably because the depth of field with the wide angle lens and f4 lens is a lot deeper, so the camera autofocus system doesn't have to work as hard to get the correct autofocus result. The last one I test is with the 100mm f2.8 macro lens, and surprisingly the result actually I think is pretty good. It's not super fast, but it seems to be very smooth, and the autofocus speed I feel is okay. And just like all the other Canon EF mount lenses I have tested, the accuracy and also the reliability of the autofocus performance seems to be both very good. So these are the results I got when testing the Sigma MC-21 on the Panasonic S1R with the various EF mount lenses. If you are the kind of photographer that doesn't shoot a lot of fast moving subjects, for example, you are a landscape photographer, or you do a lot of portrait photography or product photography, then this Sigma MC-21 will be a great accessory for you, because it does open up a lot of lens option for you when the L-mount lenses selection is still quite small at the moment. But on the other hand, if you shoot a lot of fast moving subject, then the MC-21 probably cannot satisfy you, because it doesn't have continuous autofocus, and also the autofocus speed is a little bit slow. If you don't already have any EF mount lenses, you probably wouldn't want to buy a EF mount lenses and buy the converter so that you can use those lenses on your L mount body, because the autofocus performance is a bit slow and you can't use it in a continuous autofocus mode. But now I think again, because there is very limited selection of native L mount lens available right now. So for example, if you do want a fisheye lens, and this MC-21 converter actually does provide you a intermediate solution to get a EF mount fisheye lens, and then you can adapt it on to your, say, your Panasonic S1 or S1R, and then you still have autofocus, you still have the EXIF data, and yeah, so that would be actually a good reason for you to get this converter, even if you don't have any EF mount lenses at all. But on the other hand, if you already have a bunch of EF lenses, especially the one made by Sigma, because the converter is only a few $100s, so it does provide you a very cheap and easy way for you to transit from the EF mount to the L mount. I definitely hope that Sigma can improve the performance of the MC-21 converter in the future, make the autofocus work a bit faster, and more importantly, make the continuous autofocus to work with this converter, because right now this is definitely one big limitation when you're using this converter with any of the EF mount lenses. Thank you much for watching this video, and if you have any comments about this MC-21 converter, feel free to leave a comment below. I would like to hear what you think and maybe have a chat with you in the comment field below. Thank you much again for watching this video. I don't have any affiliated link to try sell you this converter, but if you like my video and want to support me, just give it a thumbs up or subscribe to the channel, and I will see you in the next video.